Welcome to my channel Silent Stories. Tonight, I bring you a tale that will stir your heart, a story of love, regret, and the power of fate to bring two lost souls together when they least expect it. Sit back, let the words carry you, and don't forget to stay until the end, because sometimes the quietest people have the loudest stories to tell. The wind carried dust across the open plains of Texas, painting the evening sky in shades of amber and gold. The sun was sinking low, casting long shadows that stretched across the dirt road leading into the small town of Willow Creek. She was standing there, her hands gripping the straps of a worn-out satchel, her boots coated in dust. Emma Hayes had nothing left but her pride and the fire in her heart. Life had not been kind. Her father had died last winter, leaving her with debts she couldn't repay, and her so-called fiancé had vanished the day he learned the ranch was no longer theirs. She had come to Willow Creek searching for work, for a fresh start, for something, anything, that could give her a reason to believe again. That's when she saw him. A tall man leaned against the wooden post outside the saloon. His hat was pulled low over his eyes, his shirt plain but clean, his boots worn from miles of riding. He looked every bit the drifter cowboy, rough, silent, and out of place. Their eyes met for the briefest of moments. She thought nothing of him. Just another wanderer passing through. She had no idea who he truly was. Inside the saloon, laughter and music clashed with the heavy smell of whiskey. Emma managed to get herself hired as a server, her first night rough with spilled drinks and rude comments. But she kept her chin high. The man she had seen outside came in later, quiet, slipping into the farthest corner table. He ordered only black coffee. No whiskey, no beer, coffee. That alone made him different from the rest. She carried it over, her eyes catching the faint lines on his face, lines of years lived hard, of silence carried heavy. "You passing through?" she asked, placing the cup down. He looked at her, his voice gravelly but calm. "Something like that." She smiled faintly. "Not much here for a drifter." His lips curved, just slightly, as though he almost wanted to laugh but didn't remember how. "I've managed." And that was all he said. Over the weeks, she noticed him more. He always came in, always sat at the same table, always ordered the same coffee. He barely spoke to anyone. But his eyes missed nothing. One night, trouble broke out. A ranch hand, drunk beyond reason, cornered Emma near the back of the saloon, his hand gripping her wrist too tightly. Before she could cry out, before anyone could react, the quiet cowboy was there. He didn't yell, he didn't fight wildly, he simply gripped the man's arm, his presence radiating a force so controlled, so commanding, that the drunk stumbled back without another word. Emma's heart pounded as she whispered, "Thank you." He tipped his hat slightly, those unreadable eyes softening for a fraction of a second. "You shouldn't have to thank anyone for respect." And then he was gone, back to his corner, as if nothing had happened. Rumors began to spread. Some said he was a gunslinger who had killed more men than he could count. Others swore he was an outlaw in hiding. Emma didn't believe any of them. She saw something else in him. A loneliness. A wound carried too long. One rainy evening, when the saloon was nearly empty, she sat across from him without asking. "You never talk about yourself," she said. "Nothing worth talking about," he replied. "I don't believe that." He looked at her then, his gaze sharp. "And what is it you believe?" She swallowed, meeting his stare. "That men don't drink black coffee in a place full of whiskey unless they're trying to remember who they used to be." The silence stretched between them. For a long time, he said nothing. Then finally, "My name's Colton Reeves." Emma's breath caught. She had heard that name before. Everyone in Texas had. Colton Reeves, the man who owned half the land across the state. A cattle empire. A rancher whose wealth was whispered about in every town, though no one had seen him in years. She stared at him, her mind spinning. You're. He nodded slowly. "I was. Before I lost everything that mattered." That night, his story spilled out in fragments, his voice quiet but heavy. Years ago, Colton had been more than a wealthy rancher. He had been a husband, a father. Until the day a fever swept through his house, taking his wife and little girl. Since then, money had meant nothing. Land had meant nothing. He had wandered from town to town, trying to escape ghosts that followed no matter how far he rode. Emma listened, her heart aching. She understood loss. She understood the kind of emptiness that stripped a person to bone. You can't stop living, she whispered. He looked at her with eyes that carried both sorrow and a flicker of something else, hope. And you, why do you keep fighting? She blinked back tears. Because if I don't, then their deaths mean nothing. My father worked his whole life for a dream that was stolen. I can't let it all end in dust. For the first time in years, Colton Reeves smiled. Not much, but enough. Word spread through town faster than wildfire. Colton Reeves had returned. Ranchers came calling, landowners whispering, everyone eager to know what he planned to do. But Colton stayed silent, his focus strangely drawn to the woman who had seen him not as a fortune, but as a broken man still worth something. Emma kept working, her pride unshaken, even when others told her to chase his money, to trap him with marriage. She ignored them all. What she wanted was not his land. It was his heart, the part of him buried beneath years of grief. The turning point came one night when a storm tore across Willow Creek. A nearby farm caught fire from lightning, and townsfolk rushed to help. Emma was there, hauling buckets of water, coughing through the smoke. Suddenly, a beam cracked above her, falling fast, until strong arms pulled her out just in time. It was Colton, his coat singed, his face streaked with ash, but his eyes locked on hers. You're reckless, he muttered, his voice shaking. And you're stubborn, she shot back. He laughed then, a raw, broken laugh that sounded like the first breath after drowning. In that moment, something shifted. Something alive sparked again in the man who had thought his heart was buried forever. Weeks later, Colton stood before Emma on the open range, the sun setting behind him. I've spent years running from ghosts, he said. But I'm tired of running. Her breath caught as he took her hands. You saw me when I thought I was invisible. You gave me reason to breathe again. Emma, I don't know how to do this right. I don't know how to stop being broken. But I know I don't want to keep being broken alone. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered, then don't be. And for the first time in years, Colton Reeves, the man who owned half the state but thought he had nothing, found love again. The town of Willow Creek would never forget it. The drifter cowboy who wasn't a drifter at all, and the woman who reminded him that even the deepest wounds could heal if someone cared enough to see beyond the silence. And Emma, she no longer carried the weight of loss alone. Together, they built something not out of wealth, not out of land, but out of the fragile, powerful truth that love is worth fighting for. Thank you for listening to Silent Stories. If this tale touched your heart, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Sometimes, the quietest stories are the ones that change us forever.